Hello, people. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. It's cloudy, but at least it's a little sunny outside and not as cold. We're in the land of the frozen north. It's not as cold or frozen as it used to be from April 2nd. Well, I am thinking about doing an American Civil War series. Mostly I'll probably start on April 12th, which is when the Civil War started. But this is just an introduction idea. I may try to do a series on the Civil War, the whole entire 4 years, what leading up to it, the actual war, the stuff afterwards. This is sort of like an introduction, sort of getting an idea what I think I'm going to do. Why I like the American Civil War is one of my first questions. It is fascinating, the American Civil War, how we got to that point, the war itself, the personalities, the people who fought against it, and so on and so forth. The American Civil War had a lot of reasons why it happened, and that's fascinating. The failed attempts to solve this problem by creating more problems that really exasperated the entire issue in the first place didn't help. The Missouri Compromise and the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Dred Scott decision and so on and so forth, and the presidency of James Buchanan. We'll get into that at some point. But I find all the personalities, I find the history fascinating. I don't just find the battles fascinating. I find the people who fought them, the common soldier, all the way up to General Lee and General Grant and Sherman and Gordon and the rest of both sides. I find both sides interesting. I find the reasons they fought the war interesting. They all didn't fight for or against slavery. Yeah, it was the primary reason for most of them, but a lot of them didn't fight for that reason. But I find the Civil War interesting for a host of reasons, and I'm hoping this series on the Civil War will be interesting. I'm going to try to make it interesting anyway. I am still trying to figure out what I'm trying to do with each of these different formats I'm doing, like this one, or the one I'm writing, or the one on the other paranormal cryptozoology stuff. But I like history, and the Civil War did start in April, so I'm thinking I might as well start with the American Civil War as a trial run to see if I can actually teach American history, or at least history of American Civil War. Why I like American Civil War history? Because, well, it's about America. As I said, I like the stories of the people who fought it, their reasons, they did and didn't, the battles, the places, the myriad of books written about the subject, and we still haven't run out of books on the subject. What books started my interest? Probably the top three. I have them up here. The first one was probably when I started probably reading this one, the Bruce Cotton Civil War book. The American Heritage Library. I probably read this one. I don't know what order it is, but I'm fairly certain that the three books I have here are the ones that started me on this. Though I'm fairly certain that my very first book I ever read, I should have started with this one, was The Landscape Turned Red, The Battle of Antietam by Stephen W. Sears. Excellent book, great book. I probably read this book first, probably in my late teens, early 20s maybe, and it got me into the Civil War, and yes, the Ken Burns special, but I had probably been reading off and on already before the Ken Burns thing. But this book is good. This book is excellent. A very good book about the Battle of Antietam, where more Americans died in one day than any other time in our history. On September 17th, 1862, at Antietam Creek, Maryland, was one of the bloodiest in the nation's history. On a single day, the battle claimed nearly 23,000 casualties. In Landscape Turned Red, renowned historian Stephen Sears draws on a remarkable cache of diaries, dispatches, and letters to recreate the vivid drama of Antietam, as experienced not only by its leaders, but also by the soldiers, both Union and Confederate. It is a good book. I have three of his other books that I enjoy very much. I eventually get around to reading. Gettysburg, excellent book. Any book on Gettysburg is pretty good. His is probably my favorite of the Gettysburg books. I would like one day to go visit Gettysburg. It's probably one of the few battle sites I would like to go see. Then there's the Chancellorsville campaign, where Stonewall Jackson learned not to go at night and get shot by his own men. And he did, because he was a knucklehead and shouldn't have been there. But this is another excellent book. The other one is the Peninsula Campaign, where McClellan once again proved he never should have been put in charge. McClellan was a disaster. He organized the army very well. He was a brilliant organizer. But as a military fighting general, he was not. He was no Grant. He was no Hancock. He certainly was no Lee. He certainly was no Longstreet. I mean, as an organizer, he was great. He was wonderful. But as a military commander wanting to win a war, he tried everything to lose, or at least not fight it. He was always outnumbered. The Confederacy never outnumbered the Union. What they outnumbered the Union was the will to fight. And once Grant took over, the will to fight continued. Oh, excuse me. Another book completely on the American Civil War that I probably read before the Cotton book is the Harry Henson book, The Civil War. I probably read this one before I did Bruce Cotton. But this book, I have always liked this book. It's a very good book on the subject. I have lots of books on the Civil War. I'm just doing the ones that I believe I started with when I first got interested in the Civil War. I was more interested in the Second World War before I became the Civil War. I mean, in the very, very beginning, it was ancient history. That's what got me into history, thanks to my history teacher in my freshman year of high school, Mr. Cyrus. He got me into all that ancient stuff, which was kind of cool. As I already showed that book. So, but yeah, the Harry Henson book. But, I'm hopefully this series, hopefully I'll be able to do this in a way that will be interesting to people and it won't bore too many people. I mean, I don't think I'm a teacher. I don't think I'm very good at it. One, I talk too fast. I know I do, believe me. I know I talk too fast. I try to slow down, but unfortunately my brain and my mouth don't exactly cooperate. But, favorite history books, probably those, at least the Stephen Sears books. I love the Stephen Sears books. I love the biographies of different Civil War leaders, soldiers, like, All for the Union by Elijah Hunt Rhodes. Elijah Rhodes? Yeah, Elijah Hunt Rhodes. I'm thinking of some other else, but Elijah Hunt Rhodes' book. I have books on Hancock. I have books on, Sherman. I had one on Gordon, but I have to find it again. It got lost somewhere. I will try to make this interesting. I think it's a very fascinating subject. I think the American Civil War before the war, during, and after are just as interesting as all the others, of course. So I'm hoping that this will be interesting. Hopefully I'll be able to do this on a consistent, at least weekly basis for this series on the American Civil War. I'm probably going to try to do one on World War II because that's probably my second favorite. If I'm going to put a triad of my favorites of history, it's Civil War, World War II, and everything else. I like history, so shoot me. But yes, I like books. So I'm hoping to make this interesting that people actually watch it, subscribe, comment, give me ideas, suggestions. Favorite movies, because I put that on my notes. I like the movie Gettysburg. I mean, yeah, it's condensed and it's slightly rewritten here and there, and I like Jeff Sherra's book, though this is actually by Michael Sherra, his father. I like Gettysburg, the movie. I think it's well done. I think it's good. It's worth watching. I mean, it's all fascinating. Probably In Glory would probably be my second favorite Civil War movie about the 55th Massachusetts. Probably Andersonville would be third, maybe. Of Gods and Generals, which is a prequel to Gettysburg, I didn't mind it. It wasn't as good as Gettysburg, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that good, up to a point, but it wasn't terrible. It's worth watching because it is a Civil War film and it might be interesting. I've never seen Cold Mountain, so I have no idea if that's a good Civil War movie or not. And the worst Civil War movie ever made is Gone with the Wind. I'm sorry, it's bad. I tried to watch it. It was long, pointless, and boring, and unhistorical. It would irritate me. That's the way to do it. But anyway, I just found it. I did not like that movie. It's a love story anyway. Gone with the Wind is terrible. But Gettysburg is a good film. Glory is a good film. Andersonville is a good film. I know I'm missing a whole bunch of other films that I probably shouldn't be, but I am. What am I thinking? There's one in my head, and well, anyway. But hopefully, this will be an interesting series I'm doing on the Civil War. I am going to try to do one at least once a week on this particular subject. I am going to try to do one also on World War II and other things of history too. But I figured I might as well start somewhere with this idea of mine. I'm still trying to make this work. So hopefully I'll be a little more organized. Have better notes. But I'm going to close it. This is a very short video. It's only 11 minutes. Well, have a good day, people. Stay out of trouble. Subscribe. Comment. Ask questions. Have a good day. Behave yourselves, because I'm not going to. I don't know how. Later.